Hi everyone, my name is Harsha. I'm currently a fourth year PhD student in aerospace engineering at Caltech.
Okay.
I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering from IT Guwahati. Then I worked for a year in Reliance Industries in Surat. Then I worked as a junior research fellow at IT Hyderabad for 1 year before coming to Caltech.
How did you decide whether you wanted to go for research or job? And it seems like you tried out different things at different points of time. So could you just
Wh-
explain that journey?
When I started BTech, I had no idea. I was just thinking of getting a job after BTech.
Mm-hmm,
I didn't have much idea about what to do next.
mm-hmm,
Maximum, I was thinking of doing a master's, but again, keeping a job in mind. But I think after second or third year, I saw my seniors talking about research. I saw a few of them were going to universities abroad, some notable universities.
mm-hmm.
And also, I was interested in a particular topic in undergrad, and I went to a professor asking for an internship during the summer of my second year.
Mm-hmm.
And then he agreed. We started working, and then it worked out well. We published some papers. We worked for 2 years from second year until the end of fourth year, and he was also encouraging me to go for higher studies.
Mm-hmm.
And also by then I had some idea of what research would be in India in industries. Um, I don't know about all the industries, but at least in mechanical, I don't think there is much R&D going on
Mm-hmm.
in the private sector. At least from my journey in Reliance, I can say that if they want to build some hydrocarbon plant, they just take some blueprints from Europe
Okay.
or America, and they just have to reproduce the exact same thing
Okay.
because someone else have already developed it. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have to spend more research into developing that again. It may be an older model; they're not going to send their latest model,
Mm-hmm.
but that's good enough for
So did
practical
you join
reasons.
an R&D job at Reliance? Or?
No, I don't think there was any R&D job at
Okay.
Reliance.
Mm-hmm.
I just started as a graduate engineering trainee,
Okay.
like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think in third year, I decided my research with the professor at IIT Guwahati was going well, and he was very much academically oriented. He has been encouraging me in that direction, and I was also doing well in my classes,
Mm-hmm.
so my friends also encouraged. And um, while while I was in BTech, I also attended this short winter course right there on the campus where students from all the other IITs and students from a particular university in Germany and
Mm-hmm.
a university in Sweden. They were there. Some notable professors were there. I interacted with them.
Okay.
I'm just looking at this one particular professor. I thought I should be like that.
Okay. I mean,
That gave me a motivation going to
okay.
academics. And my friends also encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And I did an internship in Canada in my third year, and I got an exposure to universities abroad
Mm-hmm.
and their research culture. So it seemed like a good fit for me then.
Mm-hmm.
But before applying, I also wanted to see how industry is, and also for financial reasons, to save some money, I thought let's just go to an industry for 1 year and then apply for PhD, and I
Mm-hmm.
did that.
Yeah. Makes sense. So now coming to the actual grad school application process. So could you briefly run through the entire process? How did you start, and then what's the timeline for various steps?
I can talk about the applications in the US.
Mhm.
The applications are due mostly by December,
Okay.
and finished it by maybe October or November.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had to tell my professors for letters of recommendation much before. I had to remind them by phone calls. Apart from that, everything is smooth
Okay.
because if somebody is planning to apply for grad schools, they must have been looking at SOPs resumes for a long time before that. They must have been looking at the university websites, looking for
Mhm.
professors long before that. So it shouldn't be a problem.
Oh
Let's
no, it was
repeat those
it went
questions.
really well.
Yeah, those questions about funding. Yeah, let's break my speech into many topics.
Yeah.
I told my whole story. Instead of that, let's talk about that funding and choosing an university first. University versus research
Yeah,
group
I think my
and
first question
funding.
was that. Yeah. So I'll just start with that.
Okay.
Okay. So once you decided that you wanted to go for a career in PhD, how did you decide which research groups you wanted to apply and or which universities you wanted to apply for? How was that process like?
When I was working in Reliance, I just went for a list of, let us say, top 20, 50 universities in the US. I went through each and every website. I looked at the professors and their research work. And I made a short list of universities that I wanted to apply to. That was the idea, but I was not very smart the first time I applied to. I applied to only 4 or 5. I don't remember the exact number, but
Mhm.
that was a risky option. And I just applied through the formal process. I did not contact any of their students or professors directly.
Mhm.
So that year, I did have an admission from 2 universities, University of California, San Diego, UCSD, and UT Austin. UT Austin offered me a master's plus PhD, but they did not say anything about the funding.
Okay.
I called their office. Sometimes when they pick up, they say, we are still deciding on it.
Mhm.
I thought every PhD comes with the funding.
Mhm. Yeah,
So I was
that's
just waiting,
normally the yeah, especially in the US, I think that's normally true.
but it was not the case with me.
Okay.
And then from UCSD, I had a position with a funding, with a very good funding.
Mhm.
But I rejected that, thinking UT Austin would give me funding at some point.
Mhm.
And when they said there was no funding, it was too late.
Yeah.
The UCSD offer was given to someone else.
Mhm.
And so my applications that year failed. And I realized I should have applied to many other universities. I
Mhm.
should have spoken with the professors before.
Yeah.
Anyway, that year was unsuccessful. The next year, this time I was careful about funding. I chose universities which guarantee funding in the first year.
Mhm.
At least in my area, there are a few universities which don't attach you to an advisor in the first year. They
Mhm.
admit students for coursework for 1 year or half a year.
Mhm.
And during this time, they can interact with the professors there and choose an advisor.
Mhm. So this
Um,
time you applied to more universities or?
I applied to 1 or 2 more,
Mhm.
but not too many. But I
Okay.
started contacting professors this
Mhm.
time by
Mhm.
email. Um, Also, I had a little more research experience in that 1 year. I was reading research papers. I found a few people that were um, more connected with my interests.
Mhm.
I wrote them emails. With 1 or 2, I had Skype interviews. It was going well. And at that point, I knew I had a safe option because
Okay.
after one Skype interview, he said he was going to take me.
Okay.
I had that as a backup.
Mhm.
So I still applied for only 5 or 6.
Okay.
But I applied to those universities which would guarantee funding in first year.
Mhm. So you just mentioned that after that unfortunate incident with the University of Austin happened, so you decided that you'd want to further apply for another research position in India. So I think
Yes.
a lot of people have that also have that doubt in terms that before like committing to a long-term dedicated program like a PhD, they want to
Mhm.
explore at least 1 year of research. So what's the scene in India about research positions, especially in your department?
After I left my job at Reliance and uh, I did not get any PhD admission that year or a successful PhD admission,
Mhm.
I wrote emails to many professors from various IITs looking for a research position. And all these universities, they do post the advertisements on their websites because they have to formally. IITs are funded by the government, and many of the researchers or the research projects are funded by the government. They have to formally put them on the website and call for an official interview. So we can look for them first and then just email to the professors, which was what I did. But then it's also challenging financially because these positions don't come with a big salary. For example, I did have an offer from IT Madras, but they were offering like 12,000 or 13,000 per month, and there was no accommodation on campus. So living in Chennai with an accommodation outside and the travel with that money is not a good option. And at IIT Delhi, there was another offer, but the advisor did not have any funding. So they suggested that I apply for an MTech admission instead, which means I have to join as a student, I have to pay the fees and everything. And that would have taken 2 more years. I didn't want that. Luckily, we have this new developing IITs, which are also very good. Um, at least personally, I think IIT Hyderabad and IIT Gandhinagar are doing very well. And they have a lot of assistant professors, very well qualified, and they have a lot of funding. So I applied to IIT Hyderabad, and there was a very new professor, and he didn't have any PhD students by then. He was happy to take me for a year.
Okay. So it's a good idea to apply for this research positions in upcoming new IITs.
Yeah, it's good to apply everywhere, but I think the new IITs will have more positions.
Okay.
Especially with the assistant professors.
So a lot of students, I think, have this doubt that whether they should be sending out emails to professors or like just apply through the general application portal. So as you said, emailing them helped in your case, or is there something specific to your department?
Emailing helped, but that also depends on the university. If you go through the application process on their website, it mentions not to contact professors in certain cases. For example, I think Cornell did that, in which case I didn't have to. I just went through the formal application process. Also with the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, I didn't contact. I just went through the application process. But in case of Caltech and Brown, I think I sent emails. Although I had no replies from Brown, I did have a reply from Caltech. And that's when my current advisor asked me to go through the formal process. By then, he had already liked my profile. He just suggested that I go through the formal process, but there was no guarantee.
Okay.
So it depends, but emailing never hurts, unless the website specifically says not to email.
So I think some students also feel that they should have a specific research group in mind at the time of applying, and some find that pretty difficult because they are not yet sure what they want to work on. So is that a complete necessity that one should fix a research group at the time of applying, or is there a chance to like explore later on?
Again, depending on the university, at least for the ones I chose, where we didn't have to choose an advisor in the first year, I did mention one or two professors in my statement of purpose, because I have to write about my research interests. So I wrote about mine, and I also said, okay, these professors in your department are a close match to me, so I'm applying to your university. I can't leave that blank open. That is still necessary. But once you get into the university, you are no longer attached to them. You can mention 2 or 3 in your SOP, but they won't mind if you don't end up working with them. You can join the university and say, I have changed my interest. I'm moving from solid mechanics to fluid mechanics. That's completely fine. In some universities, the funding is attached to that particular project, in which case it's tough to switch advisors. When I applied to UC San Diego, that was the case with me. I wanted to work with a particular professor, but some other professor saw my application. She liked my research, so she offered me a position with the funding that comes from her project. Now, if I don't want that, then there is no other source of funding.
Okay, so you're bound to like work with that.
It goes both ways, yeah.
Okay, so how is it like at Caltech?
So far, It has been great. It's a small university,
Mhm.
a small campus. So I get to know a lot of people, a lot of professors. It's very informal.
Mhm.
We can reach administrative people at various levels very easily.
Mhm.
And research is great too.
Mhm.
Yeah, there is one more thing about choosing universities or research groups. Um, when people go through these university rankings, including myself when I was in that stage, we think we should just go for the top universities because they have a better ranking.
Mhm.
But when applying for a PhD, it's also good to look at the research group. Here, when we read research papers, when we are doing a PhD, we realize that there are people in lesser known universities who are doing excellent research in that
Mhm.
particular area.
Yeah.
And if you were to work with such people in that particular area, the future would be very good too, even though you do a PhD from a lesser ranking university.
Mhm.
So I think the applicants have to be aware of that too.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Also, I think that also people have doubt like whether they should go for better university or better, more esteemed professors.
Uh, in that case, more esteemed professors, we think they're more esteemed because of their statistics, like their research papers, the citations they have,
Mhm.
and the impact of their research. But it's not necessary that they can be good teachers or good
Mhm.
advisors for PhD students.
Mhm.
It's good to investigate that by sending emails to their current students
Mhm.
or other students within that department to ask about this. And if they're excellent advisors, then you can definitely apply for them.
Mhm.
But it's not the case always. And if someone really knows that they want to do a PhD, that's for sure, and they know broadly what area they want to work on,
Mhm.
then they can look for universities where they're not attached to a professor. Like in my case in Caltech, uh, in first year we just do courses, and then we listen to seminars given by various professors. We can sit in their group meetings every week. We can talk to them. We can visit their labs, and then choose an advisor.
Mhm.
That will be the best. And Caltech is not the only university. There are many more like that. And some departments, at least here in chemical engineering or biology, students go through rotations. For a few months, they work with a certain advisor.
Mhm.
And at the end of the first year, they choose an advisor for the rest of their PhD.
Okay.
That will be
So
best.
that probably helps understand whether a person's advising style matches
Yes.
yours or not.
Yeah. To give an example, I know a friend from chemical engineering at Caltech.
Mhm.
After first year, she quit her PhD here and went to UC Santa Barbara.
Mhm.
So everyone would have thought Caltech is the best.
Mhm.
It's best to do PhD here. But she did not find a suitable advisor or did not find a conducive atmosphere within the department.
Yeah.
That's her personal judgment. So she shifted to UC Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
So ranking is not everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard this a lot that finding a good research group is much more important in terms that you'd be spending like 5 years with that group.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you should make sure that it's an environment that you like.
Mhm.
Okay. Did you have to write your GRE and TOEFL for mechanical engineering?
Yes, I think for the applications in US, everyone have to go through
Mhm.
GRE and TOEFL. I had written GRE while I was in BTech itself. It's valid for 5 years,
Okay.
so I did it very early.
Mhm.
TOEFL is valid for 2 years. So I write it as soon as I finished my BTech
Mhm.
before going to Reliance for my job.
Okay. Do you have any uh, tips for those who tip or any advice on how to prepare or any suggestion?
I think the internet has a lot of suggestions already for GRE and TOEFL.
Mhm.
Um, it was a long time ago. TOEFL would be pretty easy for those who have gone through English schooling,
Mhm.
but we do need a lot of practice in speaking and and writing essays because there is a limit on time.
Mhm.
It just comes with practice. And um, I had some resources. I don't remember what now. I did some practice tests online for both
Yeah.
GRE and TOEFL. That helped very much.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in college, many of my peers were going through the same application processes. So I took their help.
Yeah.
I write essays, they review my essays,
Mm-hmm.
and I talk with them in English. So that was a practice in itself.
Okay.
For GRE, there is this official GRE book which was good enough for mathematics. I didn't
Okay.
have to read anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But for English, I used this app or website called oh, I don't remember the name. There were
Is
some
it
English
Magush?
flashcards. Magush.
Yeah, it's
I used
still
the
the most
Magush
popular thing.
flashcards. That was very good. And also, whenever I came across a new word, I would look it up on Google and remember it. If
Okay.
I'm watching a movie, I find a new word, or reading a novel,
Yeah.
or if I hear someone saying a new word. Um, and with all these new words, I made some sentences or stories that I can relate to.
Okay.
So when I read a sentence, but I don't know what the word is, I still know what the sentence is saying because it's
Mm-hmm.
from my life.
Yeah.
Then I know what the word means.
Okay.
So I made
Interesting.
sentences like this, and in the end, before the exam, I just go through
Statement
this.
of purpose. So could you like briefly mention anything from your side what you feel should be included in your SOP or what should be avoided?
Mm, for PhD, SOP should just mention why you want to do a PhD in that particular place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to make it technical and leave the more personal aspects to personal statement if there is any.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you can somehow fit your personal and technical backgrounds into the SOP
Mm-hmm.
within 2 pages. In mine, I started with how I got interested in research in general,
Mm-hmm.
and then I explained my journey through my BTech, and then I worked in Reliance, and then I worked for one more year doing research, and then how my research topics evolved. Also, while explaining how I grew as a person, or how I find the motivation to finish the projects, or how I learned to work with a team, or how I improved my writing skills, presentation skills, communication,
Mm-hmm.
and and more importantly, what research I did and what I'm interested in now. And then in the end, I explain, okay, in this department there are these professors uh, whose research is of interest to me,
Mm-hmm.
and also explain a few words about that program and the university itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, Also, moving to the letters of recommendations or the LORs. So how
Mhm.
many LORs should one be ready with in your department? And
I
ideally, who
think
should they ask from? Like,
I think it was minimum three for my applications,
mm-hmm.
and I spoke with 4 or 5 professors who were ready to give me letters of recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I could not have asked them to send a reference for each and every university.
Mm-hmm.
The person I worked with for 2 years in undergrad, well, I asked him to provide reference for all the colleges
Mm-hmm.
because I had the most interaction with him.
Mm-hmm.
And the professors I did internship with, I asked them to provide reference for 1 or 2 universities. And the professors I did courses with or small course projects with, I asked them for the other references.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow I had 4 or 5 of professors.
Okay. You said you had to call them up the last day or something.
Yeah, um, like I think they just wait for deadlines or they have their own research going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a lot of work to sit down, think about a particular student, and write 1 page of reference for them.
Yeah.
It takes time, but yeah, we do need to remind them by emails or, in my case, phone calls. I was very close with him, so I don't mind just calling them.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so did you have interviews for any of this grad school applications?
Yes, it was just one interview with Caltech. After I wrote an email to the advisor and he asked me to go to the formal application process. After I submitted the application, then I had a call from my current advisor.
Mhm.
So it was not technical. He just asked me some questions. I can say some HR, human resources related questions.
Mhm.
Um, so nothing technical, but then that depends on the professor.
Yeah.
But before all these applications, when I wrote an email to a professor in Canada, because I was very much interested in his research,
Mhm.
that was a very technical interview. It went for more than an hour. Uh, he liked asking me questions. And although I was undergrad, I did have some research experience and I was working in IT Hyderabad for a few months by then.
Mhm.
So it went very well. He was impressed by my answers, and we just kept talking. It doesn't always happen like that. With Caltech, it was just a few minutes of
Okay.
just getting to know each other.
Mhm. Okay.
But in terms of jobs, if somebody is coming here for aerospace engineering masters or PhD, it's not easy to get a job in that field in the US, being a foreign citizen.
Yeah.
That's one thing to keep in mind.
Mhm. So in your department, do you have the option later on that you could continue in either industry or academia?
Being in academia is easier.
Mhm.
But if I want to get a job in some aerospace companies like SpaceX or some NASA lab, it's not going to be easy.
Mhm.
With SpaceX, I can say it's impossible. They do not take anyone who don't have a citizenship or a green card. With NASA, I think this is just very particular about Caltech because Caltech is attached to JPL, NASA. Then that's a special case, but otherwise, it's close to impossible to get a industry job in aerospace.
Okay. Since JPL came up, I have to ask this. Like, have you been to JPL here?
Yeah, I have been there twice.
For those who don't know, JPL is Jet Propulsion Lab. It's like the lab which makes all of those space flights for NASA.
Yeah. Now all these notable Mars rovers
Yeah.
are being made at JPL. Originally started for a different purpose, but now it's just into space exploration,
Mhm.
satellites and other technologies. And it is officially administered by Caltech, but funded by NASA. So we have a lot of research collaborations.
Okay.
At least other students in my research group um, were working with
Okay.
NASA.
So as a PhD student, one could collaborate with this NASA projects.
Yes, that is possible.
Mhm. But the official affiliation has to be with an university. And
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Okay. So the final question would be, it's not here, but it's just something I've been asking. Like, so the entire process of applying for grad school is
Mhm.
can be quite tiring. You have to like tailor make every SOP, and then
Mhm.
even after that, the chance of getting accepted is quite low. And in your case, you even had some very unfortunate incident
Mhm.
because of which you had to lose a year. So how do you suggest, or how did you yourself like go through this times, like waiting for a result through this anxiety?
Looking back now, um, that 1 year I spent at IT Hyderabad turns out to be one of the best years so far
Mhm.
in my career. So when my applications were not successful, I was very much depressed back then. I thought, oh, I have to spend one more year. I have to waste 1 year. But later I realized it's not at all a waste. Uh, Everything adds to your resume. Everything adds to your life, to your
Mhm.
career.
Yeah.
So just use that extra time as a stepping stone. So yeah, there is nothing to be stressed about. If the applicants know what they want to do in the future, I think things fall in place. Uh, yeah, nothing. Just stay in touch with the peers and find some comfort there.
Mhm.
Otherwise, after 5 years, you'll look back and see it was not at all a problem.
Okay. Yeah. Like looking
Also,
back.
especially in my research group, we have a lot of students who went through so many experiences before coming to Caltech.
Okay.
They worked in industries for many years before
Mhm.
coming here. So they have a lot of experience. and knowledge from various companies and universities, which now is helping them a lot.
Mhm.
So it's not necessary that as soon as you finish your BTech, you have to go for masters or PhD.
Mhm.
Maybe your friends have gone for PhD and they have already finished their PhD. Like my friends have already finished their PhD.
Mhm.
I'm still studying. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah. That's inspiring. So anything finally that you'd want to say for those who are applying and watching this?
Uh, Nothing. Just be clear about what you want to apply for, what you want to do in the future broadly. But maybe things will change in the future. That's okay. But at least at the time of application, if you know what you're applying for, and take help from your friends, mm, take help from your seniors. Don't hesitate to ask them to write emails to the current students from the universities. Don't hesitate to link with them on LinkedIn's. I personally reply to all the LinkedIn messages and emails.
Mhm.
And also, don't be in a competition with your peers when applying.
Mhm.
Communicate with each other about where you're applying to and get help on their SOPs. My friends help me a lot with my SOPs.
Okay.
Sometimes it's also possible that if more than one student is applying from the same university to the same program, they may not take all the students from that university. They have to maintain the diversity and everything.
Mhm.
So it's good to know if your friend is applying to the same university.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess it's good to have a healthy environment of
Yeah.
helping each other out.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Kaustav.
Yeah, thank you. So I like started this because I feel like at least I had normally like for jobs and all, I think there are lots of such programs where at least in IT Kanpur for jobs, there are so many programs to
Mhm.
help with that. But for grad school, almost there was nothing.
Mhm.
Like all help that I got was like asking my seniors or like messaging them
Yeah,
and stuff. And
there is no archive of all the suggestions.
yeah. And like especially say IT Kanpur, IIT Guwahati
Yeah,
or any place, like there would be alumni who are in such places. But
yeah,
for those who are not in contact with any alumni, like I guess it's even harder for them.
yeah. I wish I had known all this when I applied the first time.
Exactly, yeah. Same here. Like when you start out, you know nothing. It's like complete
Yeah.
blank and it's a bit scary.
Once I wrote some ridiculous SOPs.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone does that first time.
Okay,
Okay.
see you around, Costa.
Anyway, yeah, see you. Thanks a lot.